Good morning, Colorado. You are listening to the Daily Sun Up. It's a conversation with the Colorado Sun. I'm team editor David Krause. Before we jump into today's conversation, here is a quick message from our sponsor.
Denver Golf has 8 venues to choose from right in your backyard. From urban golf settings to mountain vistas, you'll find it all at Denver Golf. Plus, Denver Golf has programs and events to fit every golfer. No matter where you live in Denver, there's a venue near you. Come home to play. Denver Golf is your neighborhood course. Headed to the mountains? Before you hit I-70, visit goI70.com for the latest travel tips, real-time road info, and insider advice to help you beat the rush. Plan smarter, travel smoother, and spend more time where you want to be. GoI70.com. More mountains, less traffic. Ready for your next adventure? SCP Wild-Free Colorado Springs Hotel is a reimagined vintage motel and base camp for those who wander with purpose and return with stories. Dog-friendly, planet-conscious, and rooted in our Colorado community. Explore SCP Wild-Free Colorado Springs Hotel and book your unforgettable summer travel today at scphotel.com/Colorado Springs.
Now, back to the show. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Wildfire season, unfortunately, is raging in Colorado, and hundreds of structures have already burned this summer. Colorado continues to have some of the highest homeowners insurance in the country. Joining me today to talk about why that is and what homeowners can do is business reporter Tamara Chuang. Hello, Tamara.
Hey, David. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Tamara, I was on fire watch duty the last couple of weeks. It's always difficult to see structures burn, although it is, unfortunately, something we see more often in Colorado. You published a couple stories last week looking at homeowners insurance. Can you kind of give listeners, Tamara, a sense of how Colorado premiums rank in the country and what are the factors driving the increases, especially the last few years?
Sure. So Colorado does have some pretty hefty premiums for homeowners insurance. And I spoke to a company called Insurify, which actually does like a lot of price comparison. They offer tools for consumers and they check in on prices all the time. And in their survey for 25 and estimated in 2026, Colorado ranked the 6th highest for homeowners insurance premiums. So that's 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, in case you misheard me. It is not that cheap to have insurance. And the thing is, this is also, if you're looking at how much premiums have increased in the past years, there was another study that looked at the changes since 2020, and Colorado had the highest jump since 2020. So we were number 1 for the biggest increase in homeowners insurance premiums. I mean, this is all due to there's just all these factors that have been happening in the past, 5 to 10 years. The biggest one is extreme weather. We have had some more wildfires, but the state also is part of Hail Alley, which is coming down through, even like Kansas and Montana, I believe, Nebraska. But the other thing that's affecting our premiums is just housing costs. Anyone who lives here knows that your home value has probably doubled in the past couple of years. Prices skyrocketed during the early part of the pandemic. Now they're kind of steady, but they're still, probably twice as much as they were, 5 years ago. So if you think about that, you've got homeowners insurance covering that larger valued home. So it's just, if something happens to the home, they've got to cover a greater portion than, how much it costs to build it, because that's kind of what's required a lot these days. So, some of those reasons are why Colorado is still one of the highest. I mean, there's other reasons as well that I've been told. Like I know the Rocky Mountain Insurance Education Association does mention homeowners insurance was pretty cheap for several years before. So we were catching up. So add that to the inflation, the natural disasters, wildfires and hail damage and stuff like that. And it's just, that's why we are at the top of this cost list for many different surveys that are out there.
Tamara, walk through, you had some really good numbers in those stories. Walk through how the state calculates how much insurance are paying on claims.
Yeah, so every year the state Division of Insurance does put out a report about how much, exactly as you said, how much do insurers pay out in claims versus how much they collect in premiums. And some years it's higher, like insurers actually make money, but some years they lose money. So, and let's see, for the latest data available in 2024, insurers made money. So they paid out 70%. So they paid out 70% of the premiums they took in, they paid back out to claims made by Colorado homeowners. But the prior year, they had to pay more. So they lost money. So it was 115%. And the 5-year average is 80%. But the thing is, while it sounds like, well, it should be break even, right? 100%. So whatever insurance companies bring in from premiums, you'd think, oh, that's how much they should pay out. But that number doesn't include like all the administrative costs to run the business in Colorado. It doesn't include, costs of, some of these tests and, just a lot of the extra stuff. So if a number is at 100%, the insurance companies may not want to be here in Colorado. And when you have fewer insurance companies, you have this problem of, companies not renewing policies or leaving the state. And we did a series of stories a couple years ago about this and how, high insurance costs were threatening the insurance companies. And, that also sort of coincided with, I think, something you're going to ask me about, the FAIR plan. But let me just add that one thing about Colorado's premiums increasing, I mentioned earlier that we're at the sixth highest. The estimate for 2026, according to Insurify, is that premiums are going to be up 4% this year. So that's a single digit increase as opposed to double digit increases for the past several years.
Speaking of the FAIR plan, right, the state legislature has weighed in the past few years, Tamara, and there are a lot of laws providing more transparency, certainly faster access for those impacted by especially wildfires. Talk about some of those laws and the results that we're starting to see from them.
Yeah. So, the main one, of course, is the FAIR plan, and that's an acronym for Fair Access to Insurance Requirements. And this is basically for all those people who cannot get insurance for their homes. They're getting rejected everywhere. So they can't either buy a house or they just can't get insurance. So, if their house burns down or something happens, they've got to pay to rebuild it out of their pocket. And the state, and Colorado isn't the only state to have a FAIR plan, but Colorado's went into effect probably like a year and a half ago that they started adding policyholders. And the thing is, this is a plan where if you get rejected from insurance companies, you will be able to get insurance. But it's not going to be cheap and it's not going to be comprehensive. It's just going to be like the structure, no contents. It's just basic insurance. So when I checked in with them just for these stories, the FAIR Plan executive director mentioned that there's about a couple hundred property owners who now have policies, and the value of their properties is insured for $144 million. The thing is, like, the Division of Insurance Commissioner Michael Conway has mentioned, ideally he doesn't want a FAIR plan, or he would hope no one's on the FAIR plan because there would be enough insurance companies here in the state to cover all these different circumstances. But the thing is, with the FAIR plan, you've got those really high risk properties. So properties that are in, Hale Alley, or who are in these rural wildfire zones that are considered, high risk for wildfires. So an insurer doesn't want to cover just those houses. But if there is a group of insurers that are working together to take on the risk to cover these high risk areas, then that's what the FAIR plan is. So it's not all on one insurance company. It's kind of all these insurance companies share the risk. They charge a high amount, but they can still decide what they want to cover or not. More recently, this past legislative session, there was a law passed that will start providing grants to homeowners who who try to mitigate risks, mitigate some of these wildfire risks or hail risks. So like fortifying your roof, maybe cutting away shrubbery, or, taking out trees on the property that would really provide a lot of kindling for any sort of wildfire that's coming. So the idea is provide grants to homeowners to actually do these things to mitigate that. And in turn, those homeowners would have some sort of, the insurance companies may offer some sort of discount, or, ideally the insurers would face less risk because these homeowners have done all this work to limit how much a wildfire would spread, or the hail damage and stuff like that. So that would be greater for the overall good of the insurance industry and for consumers. That did go into effect in July. They're now setting up a board, which should be up and running by the end of the year. So likely grants might be set up next year in 2027, and then hopefully homeowners can start applying for those and get some help with these risk mitigation efforts, which seems to be a way to address this high insurance costs.
Tamara, dig a little deeper on the FAIR plan. Not a lot of people are using the coverage, but kind of talk about how that has evolved and who they hope to help as it rolls out a little bit more.
Yeah, so as mentioned about the FAIR plan, so this insurance of last resort, it's not comprehensive. It's still expensive. So, if you can't get it elsewhere, this is your option. But from what I hear from the FAIR plan executives, they're saying that some people are applying and deciding midway that, it's not for them because they want more coverage. So they end up paying for more expensive policies because it will cover the contents of their house, or they get different variations of insurance that they can't get with the FAIR plan. So, the thing is, legally, you don't really have to have homeowners insurance if you don't have a mortgage. And Colorado has one of the lowest, well, actually tied for the lowest state in the nation for uninsured homeowners. So that rate's at 9.7% according to the census. Seems like that's a pretty low number, but if you think about it, if you paid off your house, and if your house doesn't cost too much, you probably think it won't, why do you need insurance? The problem here in Colorado, of course, is that housing to build a new house is 2x, 3x more, or 4x more expensive than it used to be. So that's why insurance costs so much. But, the FAIR plan's still an option. But, I was even talking to insurers last week when I was covering some of the wildfire insurance issues. And like one insurer told me that she was getting calls from people who were asking about getting a policy, but there's a moratorium on insurance policies, especially in these areas where there are fires actually burning. So if you think, I was just thinking these people don't have homeowners insurance, but I think that's happening because you don't have to have it. But if you don't want to be stuck with a big bill of rebuilding your house, after a fire, that's what insurance is for, unfortunately, as we all know.
You mentioned you talked last week with Michael Conway. He's the state insurance commissioner. Get into a little bit more of that conversation, Tamara, his take on the FAIR plan. You mentioned a little bit, but also the role of the state in helping homeowners afford homeowners insurance.
Yeah, so Michael Conway is in this weird position where he has to balance homeowners or consumers and insurance companies, right? Because even though his job is to support homeowners in Colorado, but if there are no insurance companies because it's too expensive for them to cover us, then then he's not looking, he has to look out for them too. So he has this weird balance where he needs to make sure they can make some profit. So they want to stay here, but he has to make sure that, what consumers pay isn't going to force them into bankruptcy. So while the FAIR plan was something, he pushed, since he's been in charge, he actually told me he would love to have a FAIR plan for affordability, because he even told me that mitigation probably isn't enough. People in these wildfire areas, we're hearing, hundreds of houses getting burned down all at once. That is a problem because, that's going to cost a lot of money for insurers to replace all those homes, and which means the consumers are going to have to pay a lot too. And, but, we're kind of, we're already at a high end for some of the cost of living here in the U.S. So he's trying to figure out, well, what's a better way to do some sort of FAIR plan for affordability. So that seemed really interesting. I hope to look into it more because I know he's been pushing this for a few years, but I think it hasn't passed at the State House. So should dig deeper into that next time.
Tamara, real quick, your reader poll this week, you asked what folks are experiencing with homeowners insurance. Always love to hear what you're hearing from our readers and supporters. What are some of the thoughts out there?
Well, I did ask people, has your homeowners insurance actually increased, since 2020 or since before today? And I got lots of people saying, of course it has, and sharing the exact numbers. So I'm hoping to address all those and share those in a upcoming, probably what's working for next week. But yeah, people have a lot of suggestions like mitigation, of course, but a lot of complaints about, I haven't made a claim in years. How come my insurance is so much? And I do look at all the responses. I haven't gotten to all of them yet, but hopefully I'll be able to address some of these in the next column. And I do thank everyone for sharing all that stuff. And hopefully, maybe down the road, we'll start answering some of these questions right in the podcast.
That'd be a great idea. Keep those questions coming, listeners. We always appreciate hearing from everyone. You can always reach out to Tamara directly. Her email is pretty simple, tamara@coloradosun.com. Thanks, Tamara, for the chat today. If you want to read more business news from around Colorado, you can always check it out on our homepage and on our free Colorado Sun app. And you can certainly always reach out to Tamara directly. We always enjoy hearing from our readers and supporters. It's a pretty simple email. We keep it that way, tamara@coloradosun.com. Tamara Chuang, my friend, make it a great week.
You too, and thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for listening. And finally, here are a few stories that you should know about today.
The Gunnison County Sheriff's Office has identified the pilot who was killed in a helicopter crash while battling a wildfire near Ouray. Nicholas Dale of British Columbia was flying in a K-MAX helicopter that had been doing water drops from Silverjack Reservoir when it went down. Dale was 56 years old. The Rocky Mountain Youth Corps is launching a new 9-week program to help young people in the Steamboat Springs area learn construction skills. The paid program walks students through the steps of building a tiny house. The program is meant to fill a niche at a time when vocational opportunities for young people are dwindling. The Colorado Brewery Running Series is lacing up for a series of challenges celebrating Colorado's 150th birthday. In late July and early August, runners across the state can sign up for a trio of races in their area, with distances adding up to 18.76 kilometers in tribute to the year Colorado was founded.
To read these stories and much more, visit our website, coloradosun.com. As an award-winning nonprofit news outlet, we take our mission of credible, independent journalism seriously, and you can check out our trust indicators at coloradosun.com/ethics. Our music is by the Denver-based Matt Skellinger Group. A link to their music is in our show notes, and a special thanks to Swallow Hill Music. I'm David Krause. See you next time.